You are watching Reed's Conversations, a podcast series on writing, filmmaking, acting, and theater. In this episode, I will have a conversation with writer, executive administrator, and professor Shawn Granger. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Reed's Conversations, the podcast series on writing, filmmaking, acting, and theater. In this episode, I had the great honor and privilege talking to Shawn Granger. Shawn Granger is a professor as well as an executive administrator and a writer, and we did a really good deep dive into his creative career. We talked about his professional work in television. We also talked about his work in comic books, and then also Hollywood, and about public service, because he has a doctorate in public administration, and he has served over 2 decades serving high-level roles within city and county government, and that specialized in information technology, emergency management, and also interagency collaboration. So it was just great just hearing him talk about his work, which I had no idea that he did, so it was fantastic. But then also in terms of his comic book work, we talked about his very successful graphic novel, Family Bones, which is actually based on a true story. It's based on a true story of his uncle and aunt, Ray and Faye Copeland, how they... You'll have to watch the episode. I can't do it justice with this introduction. But then we also talked about wordplayer.com, which is Terry Razio's home website. Again, wordplayer.com. And we just talked about how he was involved with the so-called film group in California, which is short for the Southern California Film Group, and just how he made some really good connections with fellow writers and storytellers who are also part of Terry Razio's website, wordplayer.com. So it was just a great time just talking to Shawn. So without further ado, let's go ahead and show you my conversation with executive administrator, professor, and writer, Shawn Granger. All right. I am here with Dr. Shawn Granger. So, Shawn, thank you so much for joining me on my show today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and how we got introduced is through, I believe, officially through Mariama Myers, who was just the most recent guest on my show. And we have a connection where we're what we're called word players on Terry Razio's website, wordplayer.com. Is that correct? Or was I off?
No. Yes, it's that's where I first met you. So
Yeah, and of course I was young and I had a lot to learn, so I just appreciate everyone who are patient with me as a, young artist. So I just appreciate the fact you're on my show today, and then we're going to definitely do a deep dive into your creative career, as well as other topics too. So normally what I always ask my guests is we start at the beginning of where are you originally from, and I know before we started the interview, you mentioned you moved to Los Angeles at one point. So, yes, let's start there. And then how did your interest become in just creativity and the arts and writing and storytelling and all that?
yeah. So I'm originally from Kansas City area. My family is kind of from the Ozarks, so we're from kind of southern. We had a farm a little like in mid Missouri, and I moved the kind of my last year of high school, moved to Atlanta. I lived there for a while. I did work for there. I worked for a number of uh, uh, television stations, and then I also I got my BFA at the Atlanta College of Art. Um, and and then I think that sparked I mean, definitely going to art school kind of gets in, you know, kind of creativity gets in your blood if you're, or probably before that. But basically, I was around a lot of great artists, a lot of people that went on to do some amazing things, working on Simpsons, I mean, just a lot of the folks that I went to school with really were really incredible artists that that have that still have amazing careers, and a lot of fine artists who show in New York, um, and just amazing stuff. So for me, I majored in painting. I was a painter, but I also I'm double majored and in photography, and that culminated into me getting a job straight out of college with Airflex, which was a still is a camera company. But
Okay.
I got fired from that job. Not fired per se, but told the owner of the company came over from Germany, had a meeting with me, and asked me what I thought the future was for my. I He was asking me what my future was, right? Because I was at the time basically a uh, companies would come in, rent our cameras, and I would be their camera op if they didn't have one. And or if they had issues, I would go out on site and fix the cameras. But when I heard what's the future hold, I said, we're all going digital.
Oh,
And it it was like, I saw the light go out and like, oh, you're out of here. Because there was at the time, this is early 90s, it was all film.
yeah.
And so, yes, so he did not like the answer, but I was right. So I was proved right, but it didn't help my career at all at that point. So
My gosh. And how old are you? How old are you when this happened?
I was probably 21,
Okay.
it's 21, 22. So,
Wow.
but I got a job at Fox. Actually, I had also been working with Fox Television, so I got a job there. And then went to a smaller station in Athens, Georgia, and kind of got more into television because that was my um, kind of some of the stuff I'd been working on. I was an early adopter. I was using Amiga computers to build 3D models back in the early, and I did a
Ooh.
Honda commercial back in like 92.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, it was just kind of a the folks that created the What's It for the Olympic 96 Olympics. Uh,
Yes.
I had met them through like a internet Usenet, and so I had they let me come over and play with the tools and kind of learn how to build 3D models, and we had kind of been friends for a few years, and so when when I had the opportunity, I was able to build. It was pretty simple, but it was like a Honda logo flying through space, and that's how they opened the thing. But at the time, it was like very unique. Everyone's like, "Whoa, 3D! Like this is amazing."
Yeah, because that was the future. Because, ever since well, not just Jurassic Park, but before that, Terminator 2. So, you can see just how computer graphics were going towards like this is the new standard or the new abnormal, if you will. But that's incredible. And yep, you were definitely right. I'm sorry that you got fired when you were younger when that happened. But you were right. But it's like yeah, so people don't realize that that was cutting edge, especially if it was still in its crude form, just something like that. So that's amazing. You got to do all that.
Yeah, it was I mean, but it's kind of what I tell, the my students now is you it's really about the love of creation and love of doing stuff, and then you'll you just kind of, if you love doing it, you will eventually see the reward from it. But it definitely is it's definitely at the beginning it can be very difficult to break in and figure out which piece that you're going to do. And that was for me kind of the so I think, like, for me, I really wanted to tell stories. I always like to write and tell stories. And when I so then I was working for this little station, and it's called WNGM 34 in Athens, Georgia.
Mhm.
And we would it was kind of it was owned by a gentleman who owned a bunch of billboards, kind of modeled after the Ted Turner, I think.
Uh,
He basically, and um he kind of let us do what we wanted to, and so we were able to kind of make a lot of commercials, do like they were like one step above public access television shows. We were able to do, but it 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 felt confining after a couple of years. So then I interviewed and got a job at CNN, and I thought, oh, um, so one of the um, pieces that I kind of stumbled upon is at the time, Ted Turner had this idea of we're going to build. So previously, you have what they call VJs,
Mhm.
video journalists, and you either go on a writer track, a graphics track, or a technical track or an anchor track that could be the technical track is are the folks who edited, did the technical behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of the tracks. But he had this idea of you could let's do a kind of a hybrid track where I'm going to train you in writing, in the technical, and in the graphics, and you can do everything. And because of my past, it was like the perfect match for me. So I was actually trained in all of that, and I got to write and produce my own segments, and then I got to um, edit, and I got to do technical direct. So behind the anchors, you're the person who's sitting there, going to different cameras, all of that. It was a great experience. I I'm very close to a lot of my coworkers from CNN. It was, I got to work on OJ. I got to work on um, the the Olympic bombing. I got to work on,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it was great. I went to on in 95, I went to Spain just on a trip. There was some airline was giving us a discount and they said CM and employees, we got a percentage off. You go anywhere in the world. So I just looked and said, okay, in Europe, where's the cheapest place? And I went to Spain. When I went to Spain, I accidentally was having I met this gentleman who was in the a war in Spain, and we were having breakfast. He was telling me his story, and a terrorist bomb went off outside. So I was able to get out there and do like a little call-in coverage for that. So, working at CNN is very exciting. There's always, you have so many opportunities and um, I came out to LA and was able to kind of I went to a movie screening with all the big name movie critics. They all like something I did not realize. They all go to movies together. Um,
Oh,
and so, I mean, I'm sure that doesn't happen all the time, you
no,
know,
I don't think so, man. Oh my
but
goodness.
they all were there when I was at the movie theater that I went to. And so we and afterwards, we were talking about it, and I was like, wait, they all talk amongst themselves. Like, I think they should, maybe not do this, but this is mid 90s, so maybe now they're a little bit more independent, but back then
Yeah.
it was so the a lot of experiences, that's kind of was my kind of shaped who I was. But again, I was writing news, and not that much. And so I've really started to feel like um, I wanted to write more. So I came up with a plan and I um, started writing screenplays and I quit CNN and I went to work for a bank. Um,
Okay.
and I thought, okay, I don't have to think of anything, be creative at work. I can just do this and then write screenplays at night. Um, and then my life kind of happened, and I ended up getting transferred, um, and having to move out to LA. I didn't move out because of Hollywood, but that was a benefit of me coming out anyway. And so I came out, but the and this is kind of where, you and I met,
Mhm.
which is the only folks there was, I knew maybe one other person out in LA besides the folks that were active on Word Player.
Mhm.
I knew no one else. So when I landed, that was my tribe. That was, you know, people I hung out with. I was either at work or hanging out with Word Players. That was the only people I knew. Um,
Wow. And who is that one person that you mentioned that you knew from wordplay?
oh no, no. I knew all the so
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I knew all the Word Players. Actually, I had never met any of them in person. I had only it was only online. Back then, I can't remember if it was AOL still or if
Uh,
we went to the website, but it was early. It was early, early.
very
Um,
early. Yeah, way before social media ever existed.
yes, it was very. And so when I moved out, they were kind of um, the folks that I uh, kind of uh, kind of bonded with and had the most in common with. And since I came out and I was really trying to dedicate my life to writing screenplays, and I was in Hollywood, it would seem like, oh, this is perfect. Everything's going to work out, and it's going to be the dream that everyone has. And probably, as you've heard, Hollywood is not doesn't work like they show in Hollywood.
Yeah. It's not like you step a foot in Hollywood off that bus and you got your Oscar right in hand. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of my story, how I ended up here, and how I kind of got into screenwriting and how I got into um, entertainment. Um,
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, I'm just absorbing all that from the work you did with CNN, especially that incident in Spain where a terrorist bomb went up and you were just happened. Oh my gosh. Wow, you've had a really awesome life just from just the early, my goodness. So I guess that brings another question was that when you studied painting, did you also write like any short stories as a kid that like your love of movies and cinema that, fueled the passion to try to focus on that full time and just work at a bank was so what was and then how did you discover wordplayer.com? What do you remember the year you discovered it in?
I was still at CNN when I discovered Word Player. So how I discovered it, I remember this. So um, I used to, I was assigned to find websites to write art, like short, um, little packages. So basically, a package is like a little short story for CNN. And I was assigned to do websites. So I would find like toy websites or um, like genre websites that were kind of a little niche, but were interesting to a lot of folks. And so I, and certain musicians. Um, and I would do stories on them. And Word Player came up. I don't know that I ever did a story on it, but I was interested enough that I stayed, like I was hooked after that. And so I was constantly on it, kind of finding out who people were and then emailing them, asking questions. So I know when it had to have been, I left CNN at the end of 98. So it had to have been um, probably 97, 98 when I found them. Probably 98. I mean,
Yeah,
90,
because I think wordplay officially started in 1997, I want to believe. Because I do remember the story, because for those who don't know what wordplayer.com is, for those who are watching and listening, that's the home website of screenwriter producer Terry Rossio. And of course, he's worked on movies like Aladdin, the 1992 version of Aladdin, Shrek, Mask of Zorro, Pirates of the Caribbean, not in that particular order. So again, since this being like you said, Sean, 1998, so you come across the website and it's like, oh wow, because that's just a wealth of information. Just yeah, so I can see why he stuck around like I did.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a very and it's a lot of it's not it's not just Terry. Terry's a huge Terry and Ted both are
Yes.
huge, vast kind of wealth of knowledge, right? But it wasn't just them. Like it was like hundreds of people who
Yeah.
all were very giving, and some people new to the industry, but some people who were very experienced and had been around a while and knew, so and so, and had worked on this movie or that. So as someone who was really focused on, I'm going to do the screenwriting thing, right? Let me it was just amazing to be around so many people, even though, I wasn't physically around at the time. But from Atlanta, I probably a day didn't go by that I didn't read something or dive in and start trying to get a little bit better. Um,
That's cool. And of course that's something similar to me too, where, I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, which is the hometown of John Carpenter, the filmmaker. But yeah, so we weren't that far away about what like, Atlanta, Georgia, Bowling Green is like what, just 100 something odd miles
yeah,
away or something like that. But yeah, but it's so cool when, like you said perfectly, because there again, for those who don't know, there was no social media. So to have a website where you can interact on these message board forums with other professional writers, like you described, Shawn, and aspiring like ourselves, it's amazing. So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it was a great time, and I will say, um, I the the group helped me out in more than just teaching screenwriting. It was my social group for many, many years. I've lived in LA now for 26 years, I guess. So
Oh,
I've met some other people, but at the time it was it was a godsend to have this group of people that I could commiserate with and discuss. And so yeah, so it was great. So word player, so like I said, we became uh kind of tied in. Um the early 2000s was I did a lot of I was still working at the bank, and I think that's when we also a bunch of the uh word player folks, we started we had been kind of having, mild success with our screenplays, but we decided, hey, why don't we start making short films? And this was way before YouTube, right?
yes, way before, way before.
Yes, so we started the SoCal Film Group, um, and I'm sure you've interviewed other folks on in our group.
Yes, Christopher Vallon, Steve Barr, and Mariam Myers. So, which the so-called group is the Southern California Film Group. Yeah, so that's cool. So yeah, so that was kind of like the inception of like, hey, let's just try to make some short films and not non-permission filmmaking, as Terry would like to describe it.
Yeah, so it was great. Terry helped, give us some guidance. I had a higher end camera, so we used that for the first films. And you know, I mean, amazingly, we got a lot of really good actors. If, you know, people can find a lot of the films actually on YouTube now. I know that a lot
Yeah,
of digitized, um, but
thank
they're,
goodness. Yeah, thank goodness they're digitized. Otherwise, they'd never see the light of day.
yeah, yeah. So, and there was just such a huge group of talent that kind of coalesced to create all that. So that was another great experience that came out of the word players. We found each other and said, hey, let's do this because we some of us I've had some middling success with screenplays. I think I told you the my first screenplay when I came out, I had finished it before I came out, and then edited um, when I was here in LA. Was a screenplay I wrote about a bank heist, Most of my screenplays are crime related. That's tends to be where my passion is. And
Yeah.
so the my th- it was based on an actual uh, process at banks that that gave a window of opportunity to steal from a bank that most people wouldn't know about. But I worked at a bank and I saw that hey, there's this weird thing they do that if you know about it, like you have a a time of once a week that you could go and steal as much money as you could grab and then run.
Wow.
And so so I wrote a screenplay about it. But of course, my characters are bumbling fools, so they don't succeed. But the but I wrote that and I had some success. It was optioned a few times. But as you know, things don't always work out well. Um, you know, my friend of mine, Justin Mers, who's he also came out from Atlanta and he lives here in LA now. Um, has had some it writes an amazing scripts. Has Spielberg has fought for his scripts and
Oh,
um, done, and they had, I think the last one was the Netflix fought and won for his Alice, uh, the Alice in Wonderland meets Dorothy from Wizard of Oz script,
okay.
and they bought it, um, and it still has yet to be made. So that is the hard truth about writing in Hollywood is that we find that even amazing talent sometimes, um, like once you let the baby go, you don't have any control over it. So it's very, very difficult. Can be very disheartening for folks. Um, and so for us, that's kind of, I had that experience a few times and nothing was actually getting made. I was just getting a lot of calls and getting options. Um, but the getting that, let's make some short films and see if we can't get some traction that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a great opportunity. So.
Yeah, and I can imagine with your expertise having, been through professional studios, so I'm sure that you're like a technical advisor in some capacity too, in certain respects, with your knowledge of, computer graphics and digital. And, so was that a key component for the other short films you guys worked on?
It was some. So because I have the degree in photography, that was my biggest role for most of the short films was the cameraman, right? I was
Ah,
DP. So I DP'd almost all the original early ones. Um, the Marshall came in late after I did and kind of started DPing more, but the yeah, so a lot of the early ones, I do the DP. I acted in one. I don't know if it was that great, but I tried my best. And
do you remember the title of that film that you acted in?
um, no, it was I don't remember the title. It was something. It was basically about two stoners who get like a crazy crime plan, right? So it kind of fit. I didn't write it, but it fit into my persona, I guess, of what I wrote about. So
That is cool though. Man, hopefully we can find it. I'll have to do a search on YouTube or maybe ask like Tina Anderson or Marion
oh,
Myers.
Tina
Where is
probably,
it?
yeah, Tina probably knows.
Yeah, so that would be cool. My gosh. And then so yeah, so you're making the short films with the so-called film group with wordplayer.com. And then also, so when you met Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio for the first time, how was that? And just getting their support? Because I remember in my interview with Mariama how she described how Terry would donate film equipment like
Right.
dollies and stuff like that. So how was that knowing you got the support of
Well,
just
so
of that?
Terry, I went with Terry to buy the equipment because I
Oh,
had the production experience. So we went
oh,
and I also had been dealing with the company. So we Yeah. So I will say, I not being from Hollywood, I did not have the broad knowledge of who's who. I met Terry and Ted and realized them as people,
Yeah.
that they're very open, but I didn't know their resume before I met them. So when I met them, it was just like meeting just anyone. It's like, oh, who are you? What do you do? So, but I think that helps because I didn't have any like I wasn't starstruck from anyone because I just didn't know who they were. Um, but
Yeah.
they were so open and so like giving, and helping us with the films, and helping us get, um, how to get exposure and how to show and showing it to folks, and how to I had an early probably 2004 I did a disco party downtown in LA, and I hosted a disco party and we showed some of the short films, and we, you know, we just kind of all tried to help each other and just do whatever we could to like kind of get each other's, you know, because it was kind of like if you become big, maybe it'll help me, maybe it doesn't, but at least we're helping all of us kind of move up. Um, so he Terry and Ted were amazing in that. Um, so I actually so for in my screenwriting, Terry, and Ted were both really, instrumental in kind of helping me move on from my first screenplay, even though it was mildly successful in that I got optioned, but it wasn't going anywhere. Harry said he was like, "You gotta, you gotta move on." That's one of in a lot of his writing. That's what he says. Just you finish it. Okay, what's the next one? Don't sit there and like baby that one. You got to move. What's your next idea? What's your next idea? And so I think we were at lunch or something, and that question came up, and I was like, well, I don't know, but I have this thing in my family, um, about my childhood, and I think it might be an interesting story. And I could tell it wasn't probably the most interesting thing, someone's telling you, oh, I think my childhood's interesting. It, and then I said, well, because my uncle that I knew and I stayed with, was a serial killer.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
And so Terry's like, oh, that's it. That's the one. So, so I wrote the Family Bone script from that, and that's about so it's almost all true incidents, but combined to kind of over a summer, right? It's not, um, and that d- kind of, I think I was a little like, because to be honest, it's not at the time, especially late 90s, it was still a little raw for the family. So
Yeah.
it was still kind of, I don't know if I want to expose this to everyone. Uh,
Yeah.
but with the encouragement of Terry and some other of the word players, it was kind of like, do this. So I wrote Family Bones based on my life with Ray and Faye Copeland. They are the oldest serial killer sentenced to death, uh,
Mm.
and they, killed at least more than a dozen people. They over probably a couple decades.
Mm.
They only found about 10 bodies, but they only stopped. They just stopped looking. Actually, to be honest,
Oh my
um,
gosh.
this is enough. We don't need to find more. Um, and so I wrote the story about what it was like, and it's not so much just about like a serial killer. It's the story is more about growing up in a dysfunctional environment, but also, there are like growing up in kind of Missouri and the Ozarks, there's some really fascinating, fun things. But there's also a lot of, especially at the time, a lot of danger. When I look back at some of the stuff, I was telling someone recently about we used to go cave snorkeling, where
Uh,
you snorkel in caves and you pop up and look for air every, few feet.
yeah, like air pockets and caves.
Right. But I was like, but if we failed, we died. But
Yeah.
that is the environment that you you grow up in, and you don't really think about that. I was given a so I literally the 22 that Ray used to murder everyone. We bought as a family the same. We all bought 22s at the same time. I have the exact same rifle that he used.
Oh, ooh,
So it's a very yeah. So I wrote Family Bones. That it's people can still it's still out there.
yeah,
It sold a ton. The first issue I think went to reprint like 4 times. Uh,
yeah.
it,
So how many? Because I think I checked it on Amazon just recently. I think it's listed on Amazon currently for $77 or something like that for one of the issues. So yeah.
Yeah, it kind of it has its following. I remember I used to go to conventions, and like it was just amazing how many people would come up and buy the copies. The graphic novel, basically, um, I the well I'll get to so I wrote the screenplay, right, and then the so I wrote that as screenplay and it got optioned. It I think it was optioned about 12 times
Oh wow.
total. And the I was doing so on Terry's advice, I was doing very short options so that people either had to put up or shut up. It was you either start the process or I get it back because I didn't want it sitting there. I'd already learned from my first script, don't do long options because if they sit on it, then it's just done.
Yeah.
Uh, so we did that. One of the options was Stan Winston, who was
Oh,
probably the furthest of anyone along of anyone. But then,
really?
yeah, so he was really into like he understood the whole vision. He understood what I was trying to do, and he understood like it's not just about like glorifying the serial killers. It's really about glorifying the life of the other people and
Hmm.
talking about the victims, but also exposing this kind of real, like dark kind of place that exists at the time. And but sadly, he developed cancer and passed away very quickly.
Yeah.
And so, the yeah, that was very disappointing because it that I really feel like if we had a few more years, that would have been, it would have gone. I think he was looking for a vehicle, and it was like the perfect vehicle to showcase both his talents and kind of, because he wanted to show his storytelling more than just the effect.
Yeah, because I know he's best known for doing a lot of the animatronics for Jurassic Park, Terminator films, and also Pumpkinhead. I mean, he directed Pumpkinhead, so I can kind of see because that's a very deeply aside from it being a horror film, that's a very emotional film when you kind of break it down character-wise. So I can see why he would be interested in Family Bones of that same topic. So that's cool, honestly, that he was the furthest as far as optioning your material. That is, how many people can say that? That is so cool.
Yeah, it's like one of those other like near misses, like it's so close. The But it was cool. I told you that one of the highlights for me though was getting the tour of his studio, and I got to see, all the he did the interview or not, was it interview with one of the vampire movies with Brad Pitt and
Oh,
um
Interview for the Vampire, was that
yeah,
it? That was
yeah,
like, yeah, late 90s. Yeah.
yeah, so he must have he because they had the full life size statues in his studio. The Terminator studio, the
Man.
yeah, the small soldiers, they had those. He had the I think it was the
Like, do
air.
you have Alien? Because I have a Alien, as you can see behind my head.
Oh
Was it
yeah,
Alien stuff or from Aliens? I should say Aliens.
the I can't remember if I saw any alien gear there, but I did see Doom. That just I think come out, so the Doom creature was there.
Yeah, was that the one with the Dwayne Johnson, The Rock?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that from early 2000 because I played that game as a kid. So it's
Yeah.
like, wait, as I forgot that Stan Winston did the animatronics for that film.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was going through the studio, I was constantly like, "Oh, you did this? You did like I did not know." I mean, that's how good it is, right? Is that a lot of times you just don't you think it's real or don't realize it's not um, that it's a full functioning thing, not 3D animation. So, yeah.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh. Because I'm a big fan of Stan Winston. So that is, I appreciate you sharing that story because that is amazing. And just the fact that, again, you took interest in your material. So again, it is a near miss, but you do have those memories that is something special though. That is really something special.
Yeah. So you're so so back because we talked about the comic of Family Bones. So
Yes. How did that start? Yes.
yeah, so how that started was actually at a word player dinner. I think we're celebrating one of the Pirates movies. I'm almost positive it was. Um, and we were at the dinner and we were talking, and I remember Terry was sitting there, and I was probably complaining about another time I got optioned and it just failed and nothing's going on with the script. And I said, you know what? I've been thinking about maybe I'll just turn Family Bones into a comic book because I love comic books since I was a child, and especially independent ones. And I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about the process of making a comic book. Um, but I just said that. And Terry, he left and then he came back, and I don't know if it was just a thought he came back with or if he had a conversation, but distinctly remember what he said was Neil Gaiman said, "That's a big mistake. That making comic books they will suck the life out of you and you'll get nothing out of it." And I don't think he was saying it for like forever. Like but at the time, this was in like 2005, 2004.
Yeah.
Um, it was already kind of the down slope of the independent comic books. And so what he knew that I did not know was that it had gotten much harder to make them. Though, fast forward 10 years, and it's much, much harder than, in 2016 than it was in 2006. So
Yeah.
2006. So I'm lucky I didn't listen to Terry or because in fact, I he spurred me because that was when he said, "Oh, it's too hard." I was like, "Well,
I'm
then
gonna do it. So if someone tells you it's hard, you're gonna do it, damn it.
yes." I was like, "You cannot tell me I'm doing screenwriting for God's sake." So, I'm a sucker for punishment.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
so-
for those who don't know about who Neil Gaiman is, he's best known for the Sandman, a graphic novel series, and a whole
oh,
bunch of books, American Gods, and of course Good Omens with Terry Pratchett. So if it's like, okay, he's done several comics. So that's good that you just, in that moment, it's like, no, I'm gonna still do it. I'm gonna still give it a shot. I mean, all I can do is go up from there, I guess.
right. And again, the internet and social media still wasn't around. So, but um, I was pretty tech savvy, so I went and I found folks that could help me. And then we got the first issue of Family Bones created. I got some really good talent tied into that. And then it kind of flew. So the first issue was, like I said, I think we did. five five printings total.
Mhm.
Um, and then we had issue two, three, four. It all went through Diamond Comics, so it went around the world. I got pictures from France where people were taking pictures with the comic over in France. So it was it got a lot of publicity as well. I was in the Wall Street Journal. I was in a
Oh,
lot of newspapers. Yeah, it was very well, I would say it was a little controversial. Like,
mhm.
people are like, well, they still had this, well, comic books are superheroes. You're doing a true crime comic. How sick are you? Right. So that was the response. I remember from Missouri, I was one of the biggest papers in Missouri, the Kansas City Star, interviewed me, and the guy was getting really, really rude. And I told him, I said, I you haven't read it, obviously, um, and you're judging it by just the idea of it. But if you read it, you will understand. I'm not I'm not glorifying what they did. I'm just telling you what it's like to be there, right?
Yeah.
And
And it's
um,
interesting because the comics we have nowadays, if you look at like fictional stuff like The Walking Dead, but then also we have, Dexter, if you
right,
think about it, because so it's interesting because, for those who remember that period of time, it was like it's not a superhero comic. This is more a true crime based on an actual event. So but yeah, but that's amazing how much coverage you got from all over the world, Wall Street Journal.
right.
And but I'm sorry that happened with that one interviewer who was rude. It's kind of
Oh,
I just hate people like that. It's just prejudgment, and it's like it's like okay, you're describing a duck, but I'm talking about a chicken here,
right.
something like
Well,
that.
so they went, um, and one of the television stations went to one of my cousins and showed him the comic. It was one of Ray's sons, the older son,
Ooh.
and he said, "What do you think about this?" And
Mm.
so there it was. They A lot of these people just try to stir up
Yeah.
issues, and
But yeah.
yeah, so they don't read it, they don't understand and that's fine. I think I told you I the comics is done really well. I sold 10,000, or sold, of all the issues, I think probably well over 100,000 copies got sold. Plus,
Wow.
including the reprints and everything.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Wow.
But and then I sold, of the graphic novel, there were tens of thousands. So probably maybe like 20. One of the problems about doing a lot of this yourself is I didn't keep track of, I would get a diamond order, send it out. I didn't, I, I worked with, and one of the things I was saying, how it changed is the printing. At the time, we had a Canadian printer that used to print the Cerebus and some of the other independent comics, the Aerosol comics, and they were still around. Now they're gone. There were a bunch of little independent traditional printers that we still had access to, that you could get, very cheap printing for smaller runs. You didn't have to do 100 or 500,000 prints. You could do 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 prints. And so it was easier to do like smaller batches. Now, you can do smaller batches, but the cost is much higher. So, um, for those smaller batches. So it's now it's just very difficult for independent comics.
Yeah,
Um,
especially when you have self-publishing, like what you can do on, Amazon. That's what Mariama Myers did for her book, The Wood. She just self-published it. So yeah, so that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, so we did that, and I did a lot of touring with that, to New York and different comic conventions and selling. Um, then I wrote a graphic novel, Innocent. I had the artist from Jonah Hex.
Oh,
I've seen the
yeah.
Hex,
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
Tony DeZunga. he was the artist from that. I met him at a convention, and somehow I convinced him to do some art for me. So I
Oh.
had a lot of folks, a lot of really, I started getting to know a lot of the people in the industry, and I was able to start kind of, and I wrote, and so I have another graphic novel I did called Innocent, which um, also sold really, really well. I did a few kind of preview comics, which we sold, you know, maybe 10,000 copies, the, um, but the graphic novel did really, really well. And, I mean, it doesn't hurt. It has some amazing artists in there. Um, but one of the things I mentioned, so I learned from that. So that's a total fictional, but it's based on kind of my other life, which is I in the early 2000s I transitioned from the bank and I started working in public, working for cities as
Mhm.
a administrator. Um, I have I have my doctorate in that, so I I teach as well. I'm a adjunct professor, and I teach public administration, which my experience includes. I specifically do a lot of emergency management and police and fire support. That's one of my expertise.
Oh, that's
Is
awesome.
and so um, I through that I see a lot of stuff.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot of incidents, and so with Innocent, the whole story of Innocent is about an angel of retribution who meets up with a burgeoning serial killer,
Mm.
um, and he basically they come into a pact, and he tells the guy, you can kill people, but you can only kill the people that I need to kill. You cannot kill any innocent people. So
Mm.
I'm kind of a Dexter, but with, kind of a religious vibe.
Okay.
um, so I wrote that graphic novel, but it's a bunch of little vignette stories, little short stories, and a lot of them are based on um, real life incidents of people that, that kind of what we call bad actors who did a lot of bad things. And that's kind of um,
Yeah.
how I kind of base a lot of those stories on. I gravitate towards, um, kind of more human stories, but kind of the darker where you have, um, people that kind of come out of really um, kind of dark aspects of human life. And
Yeah.
so,
Wow. Well, that's fast, man. That sounds so cool. And also, I'll be sure when we publish the this episode, I'll be sure to put the link for to buy the graphic novels in the description of at least the YouTube. So I'll be sure to do all that too. I'll definitely post those links.
yeah, most of it's all out of print, but you can still, I know that people, some of it's still on Amazon, and, there's a lot of people selling this stuff. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get a copy. So far, I try to get copies of other people's work. I've got, Mariama's book, The Woods. So yeah, and also Christopher Valen's Raptors series. I'm
oh,
gonna try to get a copy of your graphic novel too, if I can.
yeah, he's good. So, but my other life is, I don't know how interesting it would be for other folks, but I kind of in the early 2010s, um, I kind of started seeing that doing the graphic novels started getting harder. The and my experience in my professional life started growing. Like I said, I'm a doctor in public administration, and I do a lot of executive admin. So I researched and have I write chapters. I've written a chapter for in networking, which is not computers. It's actually communication. That's one of my expertise, is trying to get people to talk to each other,
Mhm.
especially from city, counties, states, or even law enforcement. One of the things that's been plaguing us right now is federal law enforcement not just talking to local law enforcement, and we can deal with that because our hands are tied, but it really affects our safety.
Mhm.
Um, kind of researching that, and I've written a lot about the how do we improve the communication, because that's a big part of what we do is communicate to residents or constituents, but also to other agencies. Um, you know, I deal with the FBI on a weekly basis. I talk to the Department of Justice,
Wow.
FBI. I talk to fire agencies. I like
My gosh. Whoa.
we're all talking, but sometimes people just don't say anything, and it's like, okay,
Yeah, you gotta say something.
you need
Two-way,
to,
it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street.
right? But the people silo people. Um, that some folks, they turn into these silos, and so I need to do a fictional, when I retire, I'm going to start writing fictional stories of this, because it,
Yeah, because
uh, yeah, behind the scenes, if you people, it, I want to preface it. It's not political. It's very much process oriented. I mentioned I teach at a University of La Verne, which is
yeah.
nearby here in
Hmm.
LA. And the great school if you want to learn, um, you know liberal arts kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Um, but I always tell the students it's not political. You can be whatever political orientation you want to be, but there are some processes that are broken for all of us, and we need to fix them, and we need to
Yes.
talk openly about that, because we the recently we have um, the a lot of folks that in emergency management were laid off, which have a direct effect on what I do, which is administering emergency processes. And so
Yeah. And
we
also, and also, I was going to say also you did a cover for during not 9/11, no, COVID-19, sorry, COVID-19, that you were doing a coverage of that too, because that was a heck of a period of COVID where we had to shut down and all we had was communication. So because you did something of that too as well?
Right. Well, so I was front line, so I never shut down. My job was to keep government running during COVID. So I worked with city managers and um, police chiefs and fire chiefs, and to keep everything running while the everyone is dealing with the COVID. But my research, so I started a research and published on the breakdown of the communications, because it started off as what was the communication. I I should preface it. I thought I was going to research how well everything worked. I really didn't realize that my finding was going to show where the gaps were.
Mm.
Uh, and so that was yeah, it was very interesting. So one thing I will share is it seems a little, it can, talking through this, it seems a little disjointed. I'm doing process and organizational research,
Mhm.
and then I write, crime stories and all the and fictional things. But I do think if you're a writer, you're a writer, and same with CNN, and these are all. If you are a good writer, you can learn to write anything, right? You can learn to write recipes. So I think that the act of writing uh, is something that really I wish more people took into kind of took some time to invest their time in, because like when I write emails for work, I write them like I'm writing a page of my script, right? I
Yeah.
I specifically try to pick words. I try to make sure that I'm conveying what I want to convey.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it helps. And to be a creative person in what sounds like a non-creative position, um, is hugely beneficial. And you actually will find out that it's actually the creative folks are the ones that are, um, do the best. One of the one of the shocking revelations when I work for the city of Pasadena, which
Hmm.
is famous for the Rose Bowl and Rose
Yeah.
Parade. So I worked for the city of Pasadena, and we discovered that just in our group of like 80 folks, we could we had so many people that were in professional bands before they got the job that we could have started our own band
Ah,
of people that are taught, like these were folks that were all touring, doing, in bands that people know. Um, and I realized like public service, you have to be creative all the time. And so for people that come from a creative background, whether television, writing, whatever, um, it adds a lot to that our this position. So
yeah.
uh,
I agree fully. Yeah, because even by something writing a simple email, it's like don't just type in a run-on sentence that's going on forever. Like break it down. We have to breathe. We can't just say da 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 da. So I get what you're saying, and even just little things in everyday jobs. So I think it's important for sure. Yeah. So I agree with you fully. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So, but I haven't given up on creative. I have another graphic novel I'm working on. I've been working on since 2011.
Ooh, give me more. Give me more details. Give me more details.
This one is basically about there's a secret. It's a futuristic society. Though day by day it starts seeming less futuristic, but it's a futuristic society that these young kids have kind of formed a gang. They're fighting with their rival gang, but then something happens and they see that the society is not as perfect as everyone makes it out to be, and there's something going on, and they work to discover it. So it started off as a screenplay, but kind of expanded, and actually the graphic novel will have prose in it as well
Oh,
as
okay.
so it's the reason I worked on it so long is that I finished about 150 pages of the graphic novel, and then I realized um, that I needed to expand on it because it's the story's too big. So then I've been writing the prose, and I'm hoping to publish it, um, uh, independent publish, just to get it out there finally, but to kind of see how that goes. I would it's definitely one of those labor of loves, like
Yeah.
we'll get to it. And it I've had to take a lot of breaks because I'm working on other types of research that once you when you're doing academic research, you can't really um, spend too many weekends on writing graphic novels.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I was going to ask what the name of that project is. Then my second question is, how did you get into teaching? How did that develop into your career? So
Oh,
first, what's the name of your upcoming graphic novel? And then how'd you get into teaching?
so the graphic novel is called Gene Gardens.
Okay, like it. Awesome.
And my how I got into teaching was um so a lot of the school was looking for someone who had practical experience that could teach, and so I proposed a class which um I I teach a class on organizational change.
Mhm.
So they were looking for someone with practical experience, and I've been working in government, like I said, since the early 2000s. So um, it kind of fit it fit within their scope, and I love it. I find that I kind of the same as what we're talking about now. I try to teach them to think out of the box, be creative, really kind of use all these skills that they have to solve their problems. My students run the gamut. Some of them are they work for law enforcement. Some of them work for uh, human services. Some of them work for libraries. They're library directors. There's some of them nonprofits. They're all the gamut. It's all public service sector because it's a public administration program. Um, but I try to teach them how things can, they can use all these skills that they have to make change and positive change. Um, not unsimilar to kind of what I learned from Terry and Ted and Wordplayer, right? So it's kind of, how do you make positive change? I will say, I mean, I know we're going to get to the articles or the columns that they wrote later, but
Yeah.
there are things in there I use today in my classes for public administration. Nothing to do with screenwriting, but the truth is the truth is the truth. And it transcends that one function. It transcends the one just screenwriting. It can help a lot of people. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And I agree too, because there's stuff from the columns that, not just for writing, it's kind of like, I can approach it for this, or if it's like yeah, we'll definitely go into that for sure. Wow. So I appreciate you sharing all that. And I guess now are you ready to talk about what are your top five wordplayer.com columns are?
yes, let's talk about it.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about your number one column. So, what is that column? And then let's talk about a little bit about it for those who don't know what that column is.
Okay, give me a second. So
You're good.
number one column is look at my list. So the strange attractor has to be number one. It's an earlier one, um, and I mean it has to be number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably other folks' number one too.
Yeah, and why is it your number one? What's about that column and the content that makes it number one?
So what that column is about is basically about the there's a lot of people that write stories that are very well written. They're slightly interesting, but there is nothing that grabs you, right? And so I was a volunteer script reader,
Mhm.
editor for the Tribeca films for a
Oh,
while.
wow.
Uh,
Okay.
and so um, I have lots of stories, but I read hundreds of scripts from that. And and then that was Francis Ford Coppola's uh,
Yeah. American
group.
Zortro?
Yeah. So and he would so I read a lot. And that is one of the issues people have is it's very difficult to tell someone like the screenplay that you wrote or the story you wrote um it's well written. There is nothing wrong with it. It's just not that interesting. There's no reason I want to read it. And that article really put into this concept that you feel, but it put it into a solid form that I could say, yes, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I mean.
Yeah, because if you look at kind of projects, not just today, but over the years, because I've read through some scripts too, and usually it's kind of like, okay, why do I want to invest my time reading this? What's that strange attractor? Like we
Right.
could cite movies like Back to the Future. A kid accidentally gets sent back to the past in 1955 in a DeLorean time machine, and he has to make his, parents fall in love because he accidentally, splits them apart before they had a chance to meet. Then yes, so we could see how just with describing that, that's the strange attractor, and him trying to get back to the future, and play rock and roll concert at the formal at their parents' high school. So it's along those lines. Because if it was just like, it just makes it strange, meaning unique, and a an attractor, meaning there's something cool about this. So yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And I will say before I read that column, like you could, you knew it, you knew what, but those columns put it in perspective and put it into a solid form where it's like, here it is. This is the problem. And so that's so my second one is gonna be the what is it? The steal this column.
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's it's one of the things that, you know, I think a lot of younger folks get caught up on is then, this the whole stealing part.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the what is the kind of like what is stealing in this industry, and how frequent it happens. I helped self-publish a comic back in 2006, 2007. And for the life of me, I can't even remember the name of it. But it was about this society that kind of like had these fighting and um, jump into the future. And I don't know, but there's the Tom Cruise film about, I think it's called Edge of Tomorrow or something, where
Oh yeah, I know that film. Yeah.
it is almost identical to that comic book. Now, it's
Oh.
not my comic book, it was someone else's, but it literally is very similar. And that happens in this industry. It's like,
Mm,
well, were they influenced? Or, I mean, they very well could have. I cannot tell you all the producers and directors that I met when I would do conventions who would come up and buy all our comics, right? To and did they someone do that and then get the idea for this comic?
mhm.
Um, that just happens. It's
Yeah, and also kind of stresses the importance of copywriting your material, in cases like that, so you can avoid the legal battles. Because I remember seeing just articles, even when I think it was like a couple recently, some pretty bogus ones. Like someone claimed that someone stole the idea of Finding Nemo,
oh
like
right.
like 5 or 10 years after it was released. And of course, recently there was this big one with Moana 2, where the guy was suing Disney for a billion, no, not a billion, I think it was $5 billion. And of course, they went to court and all that stuff, and then they dismissed it because there was no actual evidence. So so yeah, it's like gosh, man. So yeah, so and I've had to learn that too recently with copywriting material, especially if you publish it. Now, but I think there is a difference too if you are inspired by something, but you don't copy it like,
Word for word.
yeah, word for word.
It it's a it that article kind of inspired, like I'm a stickler. I copyright anything. Um I copyright anything before I release it. I dabble in music, and I copyright my music before I post anything. Um and I do, it just it's just one of those things. But then the flip side is like your copyright only protects you so much, right?
Yeah.
It's only so much. And don't get so hung up on, well, oh no, it ruined. This was my beautiful idea and they stole it. You know
Yeah.
what? You just
Hmm.
gotta, you got, if it's a blatant ripoff, yes, but if it's just kind
Hmm.
of similar, you sometimes you just never know. Like with the Tom Cruise thing. I mean, the writer of that and the owner of that comic that I helped self-publish
Mhm.
has gotten out of the business, so I don't think he cared, but it was, I'm sure if he did, if he still was in the business, it would be like, wait, how did you get that idea? Because it seems so similar.
Yeah, and also, parallel development is real too, because I guess to kind of complement what you just spoken about, I kind of had a one idea for some kind of musical. It was called "Come Dance with Me," and and that's on the wordplay message boards where I talked about it, and it was just in the idea phase. It only got to like an outline. Then I discover years later there's a movie called "Come Dance with Me," following
Huh.
similar plots. And I was like, oh, okay. And I haven't watched it, but I know for me, I wasn't like, oh, they stole my idea because, it's things like that happen. And I, of course, didn't copyright, there was no physical script or anything like that. It was just, ideas. But that's a good lesson where it's like if you have an idea, try to, if you can. And I've learned that the hard way where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write this. So yeah, so I think it's so and like look at DreamWorks Ants and Disney Pixar's A Bug's Life. Similar movies, but they had to be released within and the same year, right? I guess.
Yes. And did they make an ant movie because there was already like did that influence them? I bet it did. I bet it had something to do with it,
Yeah,
right?
well, and I think there was some kind of legal dispute, because Jeffrey Katzenberg was with Disney. Then, of course, he went
Right.
over to DreamWorks when he was either quit or fired. I don't know which one. But and anyways, of course, you had some people from Disney where, originally I think Disney's Pixar's film was originally called Bugs, but because of DreamWorks using ants, they had to change their title to A Bug's Life. So I do remember that reading, doing research on that. So it happens even when movies are being released either a year apart or simultaneously. So yeah, so it's a great column. It just talks about how to try to avoid those. But sometimes it just happens. So you just it's like as long as you're not purposely stealing, then that's good. But it just sometimes it just like as long as you have the proof to back it up, then that's important for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing is that the one of the things I've learned now is you're if you do find someone has copied your work, and
Mhm.
if if you don't have it copyrighted, um, you can't, you're limited to what you can get.
Yes.
So you having that copyright and having that proof of copyright gives you, a much greater, uh, damages that
Mhm.
you'll, if you do not do that. So I recommend everyone from, students writing their research papers to students doing, um, you know, anything to writing, even if you're going to self-publish it, make sure that you get a real copyright from the federal government. Do not do this. Back in the day, even when I was doing the comics, I was in 2006. I was down at San Diego Comic Con, and I was at a booth with probably like eight, maybe six other creators. And we had this discussion, and I had already been doing screenwriting for a while, but what they were, some of them were doing was they were mailing their comics to themselves.
Hmm. Just
That's not gonna help you. Like, that's not a thing. Like
yeah, I
that,
remember that. It was like, yeah, if you just mail it to yourself, and it's like, no, because where does it say you're the official owner just because you mailed it to yourself? Can I do that with an email? Do I have this is
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's true. And also another thing too, quickly on the topic of that is, well, I kind of in a situation where I'm trying to self-publish a play I've been working on, for which has been a labor of love too, which is based on a public domain story. And I've learned, like, if you're going to adapt a book, be sure you get permission from the author before you do that. And I'm not talking about myself, I'm just saying in general. But if you're doing public domain, it's important if you are going to adapt a story in public domain, there are going to be different interpretations of that work. So the thing to remember is that if you are adapting it, it cannot be identical either word for what already exists. You have to have it your own original idea. So that means like if it's in and this is where it kind of gets kind of tricky, where if you have a public domain story, you have characters, and then say if someone does an adaptation but completely creates a brand new character that does not exist in that original public domain story, you as the other person adapting that other story cannot use a character that's not featured in that public domain. It's similar to Wizard of Oz, where most people forget that in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's shoes are silver. They're red because of the MGM musical, and they did it because it popped better. So if you were to do your own interpretation of Dorothy, you cannot use ruby slippers. That's the sole ownership of MGM slash Amazon Studios now. You can use silver, you just can't use ruby shoe. So it's similar to that. So what on that topic?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So it's a bugaboo. It's a bugaboo of legality. But anyway, let's go back now. What's your third column? What's your third column?
third column is the impressive failure,
Yes.
right? So the impressive failure is don't make, Superman. I think he used Superman. A perfect example is that a good Superman story is he's not winning all the time, right? It's not an interesting character if he is, right? And that's one of the issues with people have writing for Superman or creating is that a lot of people have that this character is can do anything. Well, then, like, okay, well, how do you create a good story if they can do, they're invincible?
Hmm.
Uh, you need to have your characters to have failures, right? And that's a big part of um and this is the one. So like um the the I kind of use this in my class, what I teach about the failures is that not only does it make you more interesting, it makes you more human, right?
Yes.
And I teach my students in real life to embrace their failures, right? To talk about them. Don't be ashamed of them. It makes you more human because we're part of our work in our real life is we're living these stories and we're telling these stories, and failure makes us we are better because of our failures, not be you know
Yeah.
so
Oh, I agree. And that's funny because quite recently I went to go see Raiders of the Lost Ark on the big screen at my one of my uh theater centers, I guess it is. It's called Sky Pack, and they have like their Broadway musicals. They're having a free screening of Indiana Jones. I'm like, great. And I know that Terry mentioned that in the Press of Failure, because what makes and it's just to elaborate again and complement what you're talking about is what makes Indiana Jones so great is not only his successes but his failures because he tries to get the idol, he loses it to Balak. He goes all that trouble to get the golden idol at the beginning of the movie to end up in Belloq's hands, which, as an audience member, and I'm sure you would agree, it makes you very sympathetic towards Indy because it's like, gosh, all that work and it's just snatched. And so it just shows like he's doing his damnedest to accomplish this particular task. So when how can you not feel sympathy for someone is better than someone who wins constantly and doesn't try.
right.
So is that similar to that philosophy in that regard?
Yeah, no, it is. And when you're building characters, I mean, that article or column has kind of stayed with me throughout because you're you want your characters to be human, right? And you want to, in Family Bones, right? One of the things is and this is a true story, but there's constant failures. There's constant, the main protagonist is constantly trying to figure out things out and doesn't. And then when he figures things out, he tries to get help, but he can't. And he's a kid, and but it makes it more human
Yeah.
because our lives are not about winning all the time. Um, if you constantly saying you're winning, then you're probably lying because that's just not life.
Yeah, because then you just become Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. Like, look how much I've won here. Isn't that great? Look at the big antlers I have on my wall. Isn't that nice? So it's like, and of course, nobody likes that kind of people. They're jerks. They're
Yes. And so Raiders of the Lost Ark is a great one. I mean, look at Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. He's constantly failing. I mean, uh the Empire Strikes Back, he loses his hand. I mean, it's constant, but it's about getting back up and going again. And I mean,
yeah, that
the
perseverance, that perseverance.
persevere. I mean, you can't. So anyone who moves to LA and wants to get into this business or get into entertainment, it is constant failure of it's gonna, the near misses, the the so you have to just enjoy the anytime you do win, but understand that's not life. And I will tell you, in public service, I will say, hey, this is wrong, this is dangerous, we need to change this. And I will get shot down 20 times, and then finally someone said, okay, do it, fine, do it. Here's I've I, people would be shocked, like, people are not often in my position. I am given, when my projects are like $10 million projects, $3 million projects.
Yeah.
That's what I deal with. So the I'm not asking for little things. I realize that what I need is a lot, and a lot of people would never deal with this. Kind of the project I'm working on right now, my piece of it is a few million, and then the whole project, which I'm also a big part of, it's a whole village we're building, and it's like a 20+ million dollar project, right? And
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I say, this is we're going around the wrong path, we're going to have a failure. It's a lot of times people are like, I just can't afford to to make it right. But you you just persevere, you just keep at it, and eventually, if you know what the right thing is, you will eventually get it. Or there are occasions you just don't, and you just move on and try to do the
Yeah.
best. um but that's life. And so that article, I find really helpful. I think that understanding, failure in the character's sake, but also in life, is very important. I think it's, um, I think people can find a lot. That's one of the, we were talking about these articles from Word Player. Some of the beauty of it is that, yeah, it's specifically they're talking most of the time in the context of screenplays, but you can bring a lot out of these. They really, there's a lot of amazing gems to pull out of each one of these. Um, so
Yes, I fully agree. And I do the same thing for myself as well, just kind of like through life. So I definitely agree for sure. And now let's go to your number four your top four column. And which one is that?
okay, my number four is going to be your first contract. And that was a little bit more, yeah, self-explanatory, right? So,
Okay,
uh,
but we can still talk about it because I know it's like talks about great, you got your first contract. Now what?
yeah. Yeah, and so for me, it was the it it helps me. Even I think I'd already gotten a few options by then, but before this one was written, but it helps because to understand the business, you know, it's just not it's not what you think, right? The I think for a lot of us, if we, especially if we're not from LA, um, we think it works a certain way. Like, hey, I came in, I have a great script. Oh, I love it. Okay, I'm an option. That means, oh, it's there tomorrow. They're going to start making it, and no, and this is going to happen, and then I'm going to get more business, and from this, I'll just like I know people wrote a great script, got optioned, and they said, oh, I'm going to wait. I'm now I'm we're they're going to make it, and they sat like they didn't write anything else for a year or 2 years because like they sold it and now it's going to be made, and now they can get jobs as like a editor or something. It didn't never happen,
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't work. It doesn't completely. It's a full moon experience when it does, but that's not the norm at all.
Right. Yeah. And so some people are lucky, but you have to keep at it. And so that um so yeah, so that meant a lot. That helped me a lot. Um,
And
and
also just having that, because I think, was it a reel in the column of your first contract? I'm trying to remember if Terry used a real life contract, but changed it a little bit just to give you an outlay of the land kind of thing. Was trying to remember if that was, if he used that or not. Because I think it's good because if you always read the fine print kind of things too that are important.
right. For me, the biggest mistake I think I mentioned earlier, but my biggest mistake was um is I thought, oh, I option it now, it's going to become something because they invested in this, and who would invest, in something and then not make it? And so I had optioned it for too long.
Mm.
Oh, that was the first option I ever did. That was my mistake. And so you really have to have reality in your head and make it into something that you can accept. And for some people, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna keep on writing and an option, and I'm not gonna go back to that one because I got another great idea, and maybe that works for them. I mean, I knew people. So I used to volunteer for the screenwriters um, conference every year,
Oh,
and I got to meet a lot of great people. Um, I believe Tina also volunteered with me a couple times, but
Tina Anderson?
yeah, yeah. So we but that I met a lot of folks and heard a lot of stories of screenwriters. I mean, and I met a gentleman who um made a good living just writing and getting optioned and didn't really care that he, that his option kind of like took that screenplay out of play for a few years because that was kind of his deal.
Yeah, it
Um,
wasn't so much making the pictures, just selling them in a way. Just
right.
like, oh, okay, sold, kind of like that.
And so, but that's not me. I mean, I I could probably, if I had um yeah, I probably wouldn't work that well in that. So I wanted to I created more of after that I created shorter options so that yeah, if you want to do it, you got to pull the trigger because if not, you can't just sit on this. I'm gonna get it back and then I'm gonna do what I want.
Yeah, and there's also and also on that brief topic too, which is important. Have you also read a column by Terry, one of his newer ones called Time Risk? Have you ever read that column?
I don't think I have.
Oh, you need to. It's awesome because that's the kind of topic of, long option versus short options because it just talks about uh because I think if you didn't have the short option of Family Bones, you wouldn't have been able to make it as a graphic novel, right? I mean,
Correct,
yeah.
correct.
So
Yeah,
so so you were able to I think as Terry described it in his column, avoid the time risk curve in a way, or it's kind of like it's not just sitting there. It's like, hey, I got it back, and now I can do whatever I want with it. So yeah, so to read that column, it's a long column. It's like the longest one he's ever written, but it's great. I think you should definitely read that one. It's a
Yeah,
fantastic
I need
call.
to catch up on some of the newer ones.
Oh, they're
I
great because Shelf Puppies is great. Time Risk. Also, he did one called Notes on Notes, which is a great one about like notes versus speculation. So yeah, that you should definitely read them. I mean, there's some great stuff. Which now let's come to the top five column. So which one is that?
Number five is, let's see, number five is plot devices.
Ah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so plot devices, another one, right? Like the Wang theory, MacGuffin, um, you know, different
The
plot
Gilligan cut. The
devices.
Gilligan cut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I specifically love like that in stories of like how I remember as a child, and I can't remember, don't kill me. I can't remember the movie. It's a classic. I love um no surprise. I love old crime dramas. And there was a classic where they open the briefcase and the it glows, but you never know what's in the briefcase the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was a crime. It was a like a heist movie, um, from like the 50s. Um, but that those plot devices I find like just amazing because it adds this excitement that you don't really know what's going on. You don't kind of, you know. So
Yeah, and that's great because I think that's kind of related to like off-screen movie, another great column. But yeah, so with plot devices, it's great because the Wang theory, which is kind of for those who don't know, there was those computer commercials wait, was it Wang Electronics, where basically you'd have a customer or somebody ask a question, then of course you have someone that speaks in great detail, very knowledgeable about electronics. It's kind of like if in today's version it'd be like, oh, you just hook up the HDMI to your output device, and then before you know it, you got digital pixels all over the place, which is basically like, okay, this guy knows his stuff. So it's just meaning like, okay, that's the expert, and then the MacGuffin is great because, going back to again, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the MacGuffin is the Ark of the Covenant.
mm,
And I guess this case, in Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of Black Pearl, Ted Elliott, Terrazio's movie, the plot device of MacGuffin is the Black Pearl. That's what Jack wants. He just wants his ship back, which is you can relate. It's like losing your car. You just want your, but then it gets more more in depth with the sequels. But yeah, it's great stuff because it just kind of helps you like, how do I get to this point? So yeah, that's another great column there.
yeah, yeah. And so one of the things I've been working on, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but so the most both of the first two scripts that I wrote, um I've been deep, this summer I started deep diving and I'm creating a novel based on Family Bones. And
Oh, okay.
I
Nice.
also creating I've also started the novel for Downtime, which is my first screenplay. So because both of them I think and that and the those those columns, plot devices, like they carry through. I mean, because it's really storytelling. It's not just about screenplays, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I use that a lot because I've with Family Bones, it's such a it's being a graphic novel. It's literally two graphic novels. There's so much story there that it's not it is has not been difficult to turn it into prose because I don't I can literally take almost scene by scene and it's a big book.
Yeah.
Downtime was only a screenplay, so it's a lot
Leaner,
more out. Yeah, it's a lot leaner.
leaner, I would say leaner. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And I know that Miriam Myers, she had the same process, converting her screenplay, The Woods, into a novel. But yeah, I can definitely see that. That would be fantastic. Just having Family Bones as a novel. Because I think the longest volume, I'm trying to think. Because I know Stephen King's novel, I mean, that's a big novel. So do you think it would be for Family Bones kind of roughly the same page number? In that?
It could. Um, it I mean it's already a couple hundred pages and we're literally at the very beginning. I'm also elaborating a little bit more on some of the stuff that happened, to give people a better idea of what the, kind of what. And then also one of the things I didn't discuss is, so one of the other aspects of writing Family Bones was, I had my family reach out to me and talk to me about it. Some were not happy when it got published. Of course, they were, especially, uh, especially those who are closer. Um, but, um, but I also had some of the victims' families reach out to me.
Oh my gosh.
Um, so they looked me up and we talked and I explained, and I sent them copies of the book, and we've, some of them I still, maybe once a year on Facebook, they'll, you know, reach out or say something, or will, remember their family. But yeah, so I kind of try to incorporate some of that. I specifically don't name, I don't use the real names of the
Yeah.
victim.
For
Um,
protection, yeah.
yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't want to glorify what happened to those folks. Um, but I do want it to feel real, and I want people to understand,
Yeah.
it's a personal story, and I want to kind of people to understand, you know, and that's how I write it. That's how the screenplay was, and that's how the graphic novel is, and
Yeah, it's kind of similar taking this might be a bad example. It's like, Saving Private Ryan's a wonderful movie and it's based on actual historical events, but it's kind of the same thing. You're not glorifying war or anything like that. You're just saying this is what happened, but then we're also telling this personal story, the through line through here. So I kind of see that as a similar example to Family Bones where so that's wonderful that you've been able to reach out to the actual victims. I can not imagine that. So it kind of makes me a little boosts me a little bit. So, but that's wonderful that you still try to stay in contact with them and hopefully I don't know if you'll give it any closure, but at least it's good. It's like, hey, I'm telling this story, but I'm trying to be as respectful as I can to actual people's lives. So yeah, so I appreciate you doing that. That's very commendable.
yeah, well, it's people, it's I think that, I mean, one of the heart of the story is, um a person who forgot that these are people, right? So
Mm.
that's a big part of this story. So I,
Yeah.
make sure that, I live my life not, remembering everyone's a person, everyone has feelings and family, and yeah, so
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Seriously, that is wonderful. Now I really want to get that graphic novel and read it. So my gosh, I don't know if I can afford the $77 one, but
yeah, sounds good.
I got to get it somehow. But my gosh, but thank you so much, Shawn, seriously, for just taking your time out of your day to come on my show and just talk about your career, the peaks and valleys. This has been wonderful just uh, chatting with you. So seriously, thank you so much for coming on my show today.
No, thank you, Reed. It was fun. It's fun to reminisce. So
Yes, I will, and be sure to update us too on more events. So definitely keep us updated.
yeah, I will do.
Thank you so much for watching my conversation with writer, executive administrator, and professor Shawn Granger. If you have enjoyed this episode of Reed's Conversations, be sure to click the like button and subscribe button on my YouTube channel. That way you will be notified for future upcoming episodes.